Good afternoon and welcome. We're going to be looking at running queries in Infor CRM in this short little video. We're going to look at, first of all, finding records in Infor CRM and how we can quickly find like an account ID or contact ID. And then we'll look at accessing the Execute SQL function in the administrator program. We'll also look at creating and running those queries and then changing data with the SQL query. Hold on and let me get my Infor CRM system open. Okay, so I've opened up my Infor CRM and I'm looking at version 8.4.04. I've opened it up to the accounts entity here where we're looking at Abbott Limited. What I wanted to show you in here is how you can quickly find out the account ID. There's a couple different ways. Down in the bottom here you see there's a Details tab. In that Details tab, there's also an account ID. You can get the account ID right from here. Just right-click and copy that. Now you may have a system that's customized or this tab isn't visible to you. If that's the case, you can also get the account ID out of the URL at the top of the screen. Once I've went to the account entity that I want to be on, Abbott Limited in this case, you'll see up in the URL, we also have the account ID right here. I can take that account ID from there, again, right-click and copy it. Now what I want to do from there is go ahead and open up my administrator program. Here I have my administrator program. In the administrator program itself, you'll see it says administrator up on the top. It brought me into the user section, but I can go right up to the tools menu up on the top here and go to Execute SQL. Now this is a totally separate program. This is not the application architect. This is not the architect, and it is not the client or the web client. This is the administrator. This is the administrator LAN-based. So you would have to have this program loaded on your machine, or you'd have to be able to RDP into the server where you could access this program. In here, you can access the Execute SQL. So here, if I go in and right-click in the top part of the screen, I can add a SQL statement in here. Now, I do have some SQL statements here that I wrote. So let me just take the one here that I have selecting the account. So in here, I'll add that statement, and I can test it right here. And it shows me that it found that account, and if I scroll over, I can see the customer type, the account name, the division, all the different fields in the account table as I continue to scroll over here. So if I wanted to find some information about this account via SQL, I can do it this way for this specific account and see what's directly in the SQL table. Now I can look up a couple other things here also. If I cancel this, we'll grab a new statement here. What if I want to see all the contacts from that account, from the contact table? Here I have another statement that I can go back here and run it in my SQL. I'll paste it in here again and test it. And here it's showing me all the different contacts, and I see the contact IDs in here. And I know they're contact ID because they start with a C, whereas the one I ran it on started with an A, which is the account. So the account for these contacts is this AGHEA000266, which is that Abbott Limited. And again, I can scroll across here and see all the specific information within that contact table for all the contacts associated with that account. If I click on OK once I create a statement here, then it just runs it there or puts it in the top part of my SQL, and I can also test it from there. Gives me the same thing. It can also count the records for me. So from here we can query, as long as you know the SQL query, you could query it right here within the Execute SQL, within the administrator's program. If you don't know how to write the SQL, there's a lot of Google help out there to show you how to write different SQL statements. We can also go, let me go back to my notepad here, and we can also update information. So if we wanted to update information, add that in here. And I could say update contact, that's the contact table, set anything like type equal test where contact ID equals, and you'd have to put in a specific contact ID in here. Remember that contact ID started with a C. I can just go OK here. Let's test this top one. There we have some contact IDs, so I could grab one of those contact IDs. It's C demo A. So let's edit that. C demo A 1, 2, 3. I believe it was 266. We won't actually run it. So there we'd update the type field to say test where the contact ID is equal to that. So that's an update statement where you could actually update information within the contact table using this Execute SQL. Again, you would do this because you didn't have access to the database. If I had access to the database and access to the SQL, I'd probably run it directly within the SQL Management Studio. But if that's not the case, this is a good second best for you. Thank you for joining me today.